Darkness, pure darkness, an energyless surface. Darkness, a negative energy surface where there is no light, such as, for example, a black hole. Now, there's this theory about the Higgs field and the Higgs boson flying around. Nobody can explain what it really is. Now, I've come up with a clear example of what it really is. The Higgs field, or the Higgs boson as some people would call it, is clearly not a single type of atom. That is what everybody believes. Well, let's take for example water. When water is interacting with a cold type of material, it becomes cold. And the colder it is, the more it gains what we call weight. Why is it that water gains weight? Because it interacts with other atoms, which are colder than it. Well, ultimately, for example, the more energy you suck of water and you make it colder and colder, water literally becomes a solid. Now, as water becomes a solid, it ultimately becomes heavier, I would say, depending on the gravitational pull. Well, it gains mass. That is basically what I am trying to say. Well, now, as difficult as it is to try and explain this and for one to understand it from far side of the world, I'd like to simply say the Higgs field cannot be found in the laboratory. Not because the scientists aren't looking too small or too deep enough. It is simply because it is an isolated system, and the Higgs field does not exist in an isolated system. That is why a human being floats in space, because it is an isolated system. There is no energy lossage, or the amount of energy losses is too small to actually make a human being to stick to the ground or become a tighter solid. Now, let's take for example boiling water. The more energy you feed the water, the more the atoms of the water can float through the surface, which would mean they lose weight and ultimately mean they lose mass. Now, let's make a simple example, a simple scenario. We have an atom that is in water, a singular atom. You feed it energy, it propels and flies up high, and then it can now interact with the Higgs field at a much more faster pace with more energy. But as it interacts with other elements, it loses energy and ultimately making it heavier and heavier. So now the Higgs field is not a phenomena that is different. It is just simply the interaction of atoms with other atoms. Sibusisa Mhlabane, South Africa. Higgs field theory explained.